Hello everyone. So of course when it comes to loadout selection in TF2, you can have otherwise absolutely fantastic weapons that just don't see use strictly because of opportunity cost. You can only equip one weapon in that slot, so you want that weapon to be the best one possible. And I have talked a lot about demo weapons, and I have an entire video just giving a brief description on all of them and what kind of niche they fill. But I want to talk specifically today about that kind of opportunity cost trade-off and actually compare weapons with each other with regards to kind of the big three grenade launchers. That being stock grenade launcher itself, sticky bomb launcher, or what am I saying? Stock grenade launcher, iron bomber, and lock-and-load. Lock-and-load being a relatively new addition to that trio. So yeah. I suppose I could just offhandedly mention loose cannon, because a lot of people really like the loose cannon. Actually, have I already talked? I think in the situational side grade video I have. But it's just kind of difficult to use and takes time to use. So while yes, you could get really good with it, and maybe someone's going to get really good with it and show a lot of potential, I think overall it's just very difficult to, I already said difficult to use, but I'll repeat that. While also being very, you just depend on time, and a lot of the time in a close range engagement, you would much rather be shooting a sticky and a pipe rather than just going all in on one pipe. Because bear in mind, usually how Demo interacts with and tries to fight players at close range, or just mid-range as well for that matter, is kind of spin the web, right, of placing stickies and using that to control opponents' movement in order to actually get a powerful hit on them. Because again, while the loose cannon does fire faster, i.e. making it easier to hit, it's still going to be quite difficult to do so. On top of the fact that it is much shorter range, and pipes value range a lot, which I will get into. But anyway, that's that, and I think that's the only other actual projectile-based primary that Demo has. Haha, sticky bomb launcher. No. Yeah, so let's start with... I'm going to start with Iron Bomber, actually, because in many respects it is treated as kind of the default. And a lot of people have this conception that the reason Iron Bomber was so popular was because it had a larger hitbox, which it did. And sure, that could have played some role in it. But the real reason that it was so popular was because the rollers are just so consistent and just consistently get more damage, just by virtue of the fact that, a lot of the angles that you're kind of spamming at, those rollers tend to just plop in the doorway or something that they're trying to get through, and you can just get guaranteed like 30s and 40s in roller chip, which is really valuable, and stock for most maps can't really do that. So as a result, on top of the fact that, I think today actually a video got published about, how good rollers are as tools, which basically says it all. So yeah, for many, Iron Bomber was considered kind of a default choice and just the go-to best option. Very similar to stock, don't get me wrong, like you can just switch the two as you see fit, but usually more consistent. And what was... Oh, also I wanted to mention, with regards to like the hitbox thing, there were so many players, I remember even like Clockwork talking about how like insane it is that the Iron Bomber has like this bigger hitbox, like showing clips, being like this only happens on Iron Bomber, when it kind of just seems like the players have like a big ping difference, demonstrating the difference, and then it actually got patched out, and now the hitboxes are the same size. And no one even noticed. Everyone still uses Iron Bomber. Well, more people are using Lock now, but people use Iron Bomber over stock just the same way. Even though on paper stock has some actual concrete advantages, which is why I didn't go over it first. Because stock actually stands out as the only primary that has the full explosion radius, or at least the only one of the big three. Which is really relevant, actually. So compared to, for example, both the Iron Bomber and the Lock-n-Load, if you hit a group of people, that first pipe, or the direct pipe, obviously does 100, as it always does, but the splash surrounding the other players is going to be anywhere from like 70 damage all the way down to 50. And with stock, you notice that bigger explosion radius when you're shooting crowds because they all take a ton of damage. And that's really, really nice. And you'll actually see, I remember watching a clip of, it was an engineer defending last, trying to tank the sentry gun past some spam. And they died to pipes because it was stock and the splash radius went like so much. Obviously, like with any pipe, there's going to be some splash through the gun, but it was enough that this buffed engineer who thought they were going to survive because they're used to like Iron Bomber splash, no, they just died to the stock. So that's really nice. That being said, stock definitely has less consistent rollers, but in some cases the rollers can be really, really nice because, again, that increased explosion radius means the rollers tend to do more damage, which is really helpful. So in certain, map geometry, map locations where the unpredictability of the rollers is not as much of a concern, and this is actually kind of why I'm using stock on Snakewater. We'll see if I can point out when it happens. There's a lot of very long range stuff where like long tumbling rollers tends to be quite nice on like a disad hold, which is one of the main places you're just gonna be hard spamming pipes because you already have traps up and don't want to det those yet. But anyway, so rollers on stock can be nice, but also stock has a functionally longer range than Iron Bomber because it doesn't have that decreased fuse time, which is a trade-off, right? Because with Iron Bomber, the decreased fuse time makes it so that those rollers hit a lot more often, rather than the stock rollers, which just sit out there for much longer. But having extra range can be nice on those longer range encounters because range is really important on demo, especially a ranged pipe, because pipes just do so much damage. So being able to do that at range is like broken. So the extra range is really useful for stock, and in some cases it does edge out Iron Bomber in those kind of disad holds where you want to really be spamming those range pipes, where the Iron Bomber might actually just det before they get there. Or det's not the right word. I guess explode. Although it is technically detonating. You get what I'm trying to say. So yeah. In many respects, stock can eke out Iron Bomber in those particular settings. But for overall team fights and just trying to hold doorways as well, Iron Bomber tends to just be a more consistent option, get more consistent roller damage as well, and for that reason it's of course preferred for most players. But the two are very interchangeable. And then we get to the Lock-n-Load, which is kind of an odd duck out because there are some pretty serious downsides to it. It does have the same, I think it's the exact same decreased explosion radius as stock, or excuse me, as Iron Bomber, 25%. Only 15%, so it's even smaller than Iron Bomber. That is interesting. One fewer pipe, which is a big deal actually. Not a big deal that you necessarily notice the same way you would notice, for example, just like a damage downgrade or something. But certainly comes into play. And, sometimes I'll be using Iron Bomber stock and get a kill, and then I realize, like, wait, that was my last pipe. That was the fourth pipe that I got that kill with. So it does matter, but it can be played around for sure. But the upsides of the faster projectile speed and building damage is a smaller thing, but actually one of the main reasons I like it a lot, oddly enough. I don't really abuse the lock as much as some other players. To be honest, I could be a lot better with it. But being able to just sticky pipe every single gun makes last pushes a lot more fluid, and it can be really nice, as well as just like peeking and being able to sticky pipe a gun on last or something to take it out, just because you have like, you can already be pre-charging the sticky before you even peek, so it really, the only time you take to take out that gun is the time it takes to switch your weapon and then fire a pipe, I guess. But anyway, the big thing is the range and the speed as well. I mean, those are hand in hand. They come through the same stat, being the faster projectile speed does give it extra range as well. And that's so insanely useful for a demo to have, because not only does the smaller range make it so that your pipes are easier to hit at mid and close ranges and long ranges, but by extending your range so much, you are a much bigger threat in a lot of situations. You're a much bigger threat in like a ranged team fight kind of situation, like a mid fight. You are a much bigger threat in many disad holds where you're forced to play very far back, so you're not caught to an Uber, and you don't really want to be using stickies because you already have traps up, or you should already have traps up. So situations like this where you benefit a lot from having the lock. On top of the fact that in those kind of team fight situations, you are effectively forcing the other team to, or specifically like the medic or players who are being targeted, to pay very close attention to your spam, which is something that should happen anyway, but being able to take advantage of like a small window of someone not paying attention to do a full 100 damage to them is very disruptive. This is one hold that, like, this is the hold that makes me like stock, right? Like, look at these rollers that just perfectly... Oh, man. And with Lock, I don't think I'd be getting this same damage because it's so far away that it's, like, easy to dodge. But anyway, yeah, Lock is really, really powerful, and it's no surprise that it's taking such a hold, because being able to be effective at range is such a useful asset to have as a demo. But is there anything else? I mean, with regards to when you want one over the other, some of it is preference. And you can't go wrong with any option on any map. Because again, while I prefer stock on Snakewater now, for instance, because of the Disad 2 hold and because of the Disad mid hold, you get a ton of value out of the lock on like a midpoint, for example, or just in general, being able to have those faster pipes is nice. On top of the fact that Iron Bomber can be really nice because you're still going to have to hold doors, and having good rollers in general is going to help you. So these weapons kind of fit very, very minor little niches where like 90% of them function the same. They're all still pipes. Lock is, of course, a little bit weirder, missing out on those rollers. But Iron Bomber is just a very good, just, I guess, generalist, just jack of all trades grenade launcher, where you're getting consistent value out of it, no matter what. Stock is going to be a little less consistent with regards to like the roller spam and whatnot, but sometimes that extra range can be really nice. And then Loch-n-Load, of course, that range is always going to be nice, and yeah, there's certainly going to be some times where you might be missing out on those rollers, or you might be missing out on that extra pipe. So I do think, obviously not by design, I think that these weapons have kind of found their niches, which is really cool. And I just kind of wanted to talk more about when you might be choosing one over the other, and just how they compare to each other, rather. Because, again, while the stock grenade launcher might be just insanely broken and overpowered on its own merits, which you could totally make that argument, the fact that the Iron Bomber exists and can be equipped in the same slot really makes stock seem more of like a derpy gun. But anyway, that is all I think I have to say about the big three grenade launchers. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you next time.